Good morning.
Good morning.
This is the
Good morning.
day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Give you greetings from the For the Love of Christ Ministries. I give honor to God, who's the head of my life, late Bishop and Mother Goins. Um, I'm coming on, trying to make sure I had it on time because I have to get on the road after this and I want to beat the storm. But I'm grateful to God for another year. Because tomorrow's my birthday, so we'll start celebrating. And what a year it's been. Last year, my birthday came right before the pandemic started. And I had just broken my left ankle the month before. So it's been interesting. But I was reminded of some things on this week, and we're going to speak on them. But first, we'll let Sister Karen White come um, with some worship, and then we'll go into the lesson, which is found in Genesis 45. That's Genesis, the 45th chapter.
The splendor of a king, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and the darkness tries to hide. They tremble at his voice. They tremble at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me. How great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. Age to age he stands, and the time is in his hands. He's the beginning and the end. He's the beginning and the end. Oh, the Godhead, three in one. He's the Father, the Spirit, and the Son. He's the Lion and the Lamb. He's the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, how great is our God? Sing with me. How great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. Oh, he's the name above all names. He is worthy of all
How great is our God?
How great is our God?
I keep doing that. It's amazing that in the midst of all that's been going on and is going on right now, to still be able to say we serve a great God. We serve a mighty God. We serve a wonderful God. We serve a God that's a deliverer. We serve a God that's a healer. We serve a God that is there with us through everything. Which brings me to the title for today's lesson, which is when the illusion of failure is really favor. This comes to my mind in so many different things, but when I think, even looking back over my life, I think of the things that I've gone through. And then when I realized afterwards that when I felt like I failed, felt like I stumbled, it felt like I just fell down and couldn't complete the task, I see what God was doing in my life. When I go back and realize that whole time, everything I went through was for a purpose, there was a reason. And it brought me to a better place each time. I realized it was God's favor really just bringing me through those things that I needed to go through to get to where I am now. It's amazing to me to see it, because then I realized that there are people around you that all they do is focus on that illusion of failure. And that's all they see in you. That's where they keep you in their mind, that you failed in all these various different things. They don't see the favor God had on your life when you went through those things. They don't see and understand what you went through getting to where you are now. They just see you still going through. You may have come out of that situation years ago, but all they see is that illusion of that failure still on you right now. And when I think about that, I think that's one of the amazing things ever, because folks will keep you where you were and will ignore where you are. They stick with the illusion. They will stick with that illusion. It's like I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, how folks will believe the lies. We're coming to a place in this lifetime where people will rather believe the fiction. They'd rather believe those things that aren't true, and they'll gravitate towards those and those around them who are spewing out the untrue stuff because it goes along with them and their thinking and where they are. So they gravitate towards that. But I need you to understand, it's just an illusion. It's just an illusion. And in Genesis 45, now up to this point, this is Joseph. And up to this point, the Lord spoke to him in dreams and showed him the visions of where he was going to be in life. And he told those dreams to his brothers. He told the dreams to his fathers, and how they would be bound down to him, and how all those things would come to pass. His brothers got jealous, threw him in a pit. Then they went back and decided the pit wasn't good enough, so they sold him into slavery. Now, mind you, God had just spoken to him about the vision that he had given him. And immediately the people around him, his own family, decided to throw him in a pit. Then they thought that wasn't enough, let's sell him into slavery. Then they went back and told the father that he was killed. Years passed. Joseph went from slavery to prison to all these things, but every single time in the failures in Joseph's life, there was favor. The entire time, God granted him favor. Looking from the outside, it looks like, oh, this is a horrible life. Oh, he's going through. He goes from one bad thing to the next. But every single time Joseph found him in a situation, it wasn't failure, it was just the illusion of. In reality, God was granting Joseph favor from the moment he showed him those visions. When God showed him his purpose and what was the plan for his life, God gave him favor from that point on. Every situation he found himself in, God gave him favor. And we need to take a step back and look at our situations in our life and understand that even though we might be in this situation right now, God's favor is still upon us. We are still in that place where God is granting us favor. If God gives you a vision, understand that vision is yet for a appointed time. But in the meantime, whatever you might be going through, it's for a reason. And understand, in the midst of that, there is favor. I can't count how many times in every situation I've gone through that God has been a blessing to me in the midst of it. Years ago, the carbon monoxide poisoning. I should have died being in that house with that chimney collapsed on itself. All them things happened, but in the midst of that, God granted me favor to provide for me and keep me going the entire time. So there are things I didn't understand back then and wonder why am I going through this. But in the midst, God was preparing me for things to come. Every situation, if I look back on my life, I understand it wasn't failures. It was just a illusion thereof, but it was really favor. See, the enemy will give you that illusion, making you think you're failing. In the meantime, God is just trying to grant you that favor in the midst of that situation. Now, for Joseph, we find himself in the 45th chapter. He's been elevated to just below. Just below. Let me go to the scripture before I get too carried away. So we're reading here. The main is still on. Okay. I had to make sure I still had audio while we were going to this. It says, then Joseph could not refrain himself. Now, at this point, Joseph was charged over Egypt for the famine that had been going on for 7 years. But when God put him in this position, he was able to preserve Egypt. But not only Egypt. Now, mind you, his brothers had cast him out. Throw him in a pit, then sold him into slavery, then told the father he was dead. They were in dire straits now. They needed food. They were struggling. But Joseph had been set up into a position where he could take care of not only them, but all of Egypt. And it says, then Joseph could refrain himself because his brothers had came there seeking refuge, seeking food. And at this point, it says that Joseph couldn't refrain himself before all them that stood before him. He cried, caused every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. They came to get food. They came to get help. They came there, and Joseph, the one that they had cast out, was now the one there to help them. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians of the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know what this man was talking about. And then Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But then Joseph says, now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. For these 2 years hath famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. But Joseph says, God sent me before you to preserve you and posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Now, first of all, you have to give props to Joseph for the fact that his brothers did everything they did to him, but yet and still Joseph saw in God the move of God in the midst of this failure. He says, God set me before you to preserve your lives. Ignore the fact that y'all threw me in the pit. Ignore the fact that y'all sold me into slavery into Egypt. God sent me ahead to save you. There was no bitterness in his heart. After all he had gone through, being sold into slavery, being thrown into prison, being falsely accused, all the things that went through in Joseph's life, Joseph understood it was favored the entire time. Sometimes we find ourselves complaining and murmuring about what we're going through and not understanding what's going on. And we're like, Lord, why am I going through all this? And we miss the fact that there is favor in the midst of those failures. We miss the fact that God has truly been with us the entire time. Even when it seems like you're standing alone, God has been right there the whole time. And folks around you think, you're really going through some stuff. But Joseph had no malice in his heart. And he recognized immediately that God set this entire thing up. Them selling him into slavery, telling the father he's dead. It was all to preserve their lives. See, Joseph as a young boy got that vision. He didn't understand it completely. But at this point, when his brothers are standing in front of him, looking weak, hungry, struggling, and in need, Joseph recognized the fact that all he went through was to save them. God put him in that position right under Pharaoh, only to save them. And when you understand what God does and how he works and how he moves, and understand that what he puts you through is for a reason. Understand that sometimes people around you aren't going to understand what it is God's doing, and they'll get mad and go, well, I don't understand why God would use you for this. I don't understand why God would put you in that position. All the while, he's making a way, prepping things for the favor he's going to grant to you. And when you find yourself going through these situations and struggling and not understanding why in the world would God do this favor for you, understand it was to preserve them as well. The very people that put you in jeopardy, or maybe the very people that God is setting up for you to save. And for some, that's a tough pill to swallow too. Because you're like, Lord, well, I got to go through all this to help somebody else. But God has a plan for your life. But look where it put Joseph. Yes, he struggled. Yes, he went through some things. But God had favor on him the entire time. Because it was just the illusion of failure. He was sold to Egyptians, but he was put in a position of leadership. Even when he wound up in prison, he was still put in a position of favor. Even when he was falsely accused, God still elevated him to another place. If we just focus on the vision God gives us and moves forward in that vision itself, then we can understand what God is doing in our lives. The illusion will be just that, just an illusion. And it's not about what other folks are thinking. It's not about how everyone else views what's going on around you. You need to understand those failures are just an illusion. We go through trials and tribulations, but they're just to make us stronger. If the only purpose of that trial and that tribulation that you're going through is to make you stronger, it's not much of a trial. It's not much of a tribulation if you understand that God is working it for your good. Think about this and realize that God will do some things in your life that you might not understand. But in the end, you'll get the understanding. Yeah, I'm just sitting back here amazed and just thinking about this lesson and realizing that God has been working some stuff out in my life. He has truly been working some things out. And I can't let man set me back. I can't let what this one says, that one says, what this one thinks, what that one thinks, hold me back from what it is, the vision that God has given me for my life. There are going to be people who are going to feel like that favor is not fair. We hear that all the time, and that's the truth. Favor is not fair, but favor is for a reason. See, the world says failure is not an option. I say failure is just an illusion because it's really there for your good. We might stumble, we might fall. We might find ourselves at a point where we feel like we can't move either way. So we're just blocked in and can't get anywhere. But it's just an illusion. The word says he makes a way of escape. And he won't put any more on us than we can bear. I know sometimes the things you go through, it seems like it's way too much. It doesn't make any sense why all this stuff is happening. I know me and my siblings will sit here and go, we don't understand how we lost both parents in 2020, 80 days apart. We can't fathom how that happened. Especially for our mother who seemed like she was still healthy. She was still able to get around and do all the stuff. She was still independent. And that quick turn in the other direction. But yet and still, he'll put no more on you than you can bear. God has a plan for everything that happens. And then these downsides, these failures are just an illusion. He has a plan for our lives. He has a plan for what comes next. And in the midst of all this, he's giving favor. Everybody's not going to understand it. Everybody's not going to agree with it. Everybody's not going to say that vision is of God. Everybody's not going to be happy for you when God starts moving in your life. But that's okay. Because that is just an illusion as well. It's okay what everybody else is thinking. All that matters is what God says. That's all that matters. So man can sit here till the end of the world saying you'll never amount to anything. You can't do this, you can't do that, and so on and so on. Folks are going to talk, folks are going to say what they want to say, they're going to do what they want to do. But God has the last say. And favor is not fair. And all these stumbling blocks, all these failures are just an illusion. I'm still marveling at the fact that the moment Joseph saw his brothers, he rejoiced. Wish you would throw me in a pit. Then sell me into slavery. And I'm supposed to be happy to see you years later. All that because I'm going to sit here and replay the whole thing. I'm going to sit here and go, let me get this straight. Y'all threw me in the pit. Then decided that wasn't good enough. Y'all going to sell me into slavery. Then I go through all that and wind up in jail, falsely accused of something I didn't even do. Had to fight my way out of all that. Then I finally get to this point. And then here y'all come because you're hungry. You're struggling. You're in need. Now that would be my first reaction. Joseph cried and wept because his brothers are there with him. You'd have to pray for me on that one. I mean, I prayed that I would be able to get there. I pray that I would be able to get there. In some ways, I'm my father's child. It'll take me a minute. But Joseph was rejoicing and wept at the sight of seeing his brothers that had betrayed him, because he knew what God had done, how God had set this whole thing up. The illusion of failure is really favor. Now, I want y'all to meditate on that one this week. Go back, read Genesis 45, but you might want to go back a couple of chapters and go into it again and study this again and get to this point and realize that all that Joseph went through, it was nothing but God's favor. All that, understand that everything he went through was God granting him favor in so many different situations to get him to this point. Because Joseph says, God, that 7th verse says, and God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. I want you to meditate on that one this week. That's how Joseph looks at all those years and everything he went through. It was to save their lives by a great deliverance. He said all this was God sending me ahead to preserve these things for you. Think on that this week. May God bless you. Have a good week. My birthday celebration is starting, and we will see you again next Sunday.
May your struggles keep you near the cross. May your troubles show that you need God. May your battles end the way they should. May your bad days prove that God is good, and may your whole life prove that God is good. May your struggles keep you near the cross, and may your troubles show that you need God, and may your battles end the way they should. May your bad days prove that God is good, and may your whole life prove that God is good. See, may